everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just got back from watching Haunted Mansion, which is the second attempt at making a full-length movie feature based on the Disneyland ride Haunted Mansion. And I gotta say right now, I think this is a much better version of an attempt to make this like an actual story. And also, I just want to say that I really wish that this movie was not releasing this weekend because by all metrics that I can see, it looks like the Barbenheimer effect is still going to be in full swing. It looks like both of those movies are going to have pretty good second weekends, which means Haunted Mansion is kind of going to get ignored, and that sucks because I love the ride Haunted Mansion. I love the aesthetics of a haunted house and Halloween time and all that stuff, right? And this one leans even more into the actual ride itself and the New Orleans setting and all that stuff. And it's like I can already feel that this movie is just going to be completely eclipsed because it's just coming out at the wrong time. Now, why is this not coming out closer to Halloween? I don't know. I'm sure they looked, someone looked at the schedule and someone was like, you know what, instead of having the Marvels here, let's put Haunted Mansion here. And I don't know why. I mean, look, no one could have predicted how big the Barbenheimer thing was going to be, but still, I feel bad for this movie because I did enjoy it and I love the Haunted Mansion, the ride and the theme and I love the whole thing going on there. So I feel bad that this movie is probably not going to do so great in the box office. But you know what I mean? Like I said, who could have predicted that Barbenheimer would be as big as it was, right? Everyone, all their projections were wrong. So yeah, anyways, let's get back to Haunted Mansion. So yeah, this one does a much better job at sticking to, more of the actual specifics of the ride than the 2003 Eddie Murphy one did. Now that one has a lot of merits on its own. I know. I think at the time it was kind of bashed or something. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people liked it when it came out. I do think it kind of gained a little bit of a cult following, in the 2 decades that it's been since that movie came out. But this one I think does it brings in a lot more of the very specific things. We get the portraits that are expanding, we get the chairs that are moving, we get the the Hatbox Ghost, who's actually our main villain of this movie. Just all the very specific things. They really made sure to hey, if you see this movie and then you go on the ride again, it's very easy to just incorporate, imagine that this was always the plan. You know what I mean? Because it all does mix together really well within this movie. So, I do think that if you're a fan of the Haunted Mansion ride, you're gonna be happy with how well they were able to all those little, oh, there's the bride with the axe. There's the 3 hitchhiking ghosts. There's the, even further aspects of when they say oh, there's ghosts that are gonna come with you when you leave the house. That's part of the plot of this movie. You know what I mean? So they did a really great job of just everything about the ride is in the movie. So I gotta applaud them on that. That was just really great. So basically what happens is this mom and son move into this haunted mansion, and of course they find out that it's haunted and they immediately run away. But then we kind of do a time skip, and I will say some of the it does feel like some of this movie was pretty chopped up because we kind of just do this time skip without letting us know that at first, and then we meet up with our main hero. I don't remember his name. I'm sorry, I don't remember every character's names. There's quite a few characters here. But anyways, we meet up with our main hero, who is this guy who, and again, lots of time skipping is happening, and it feels like things were edited out and kind of mixed around because this guy's backstory was that he met this woman, and he was an astrophysicist, and she was someone who gives ghost tours in New Orleans. and at some point they got married, and then he also invented this camera that would, you know, let them try to see ghosts. And it seems like it never actually managed to work, I guess, but somehow it was in the papers and people knew about it, you know, like, so like there's things that they very loosely touch upon that I'm like, hold on, it feels like that was a bigger plot of this movie, this whole camera thing, because they introduced the aspect of the camera and the fact that it was known about in the public. So I was like, so did it work in the past? Has he seen ghosts before? Because when he finally takes pictures of something, he's acting like that's the first time he's seen anything with it. So yeah, I was a little confused there, and they don't really go into it. Anyways, he gets approached by Owen Wilson's character, who is, you know, a priest, right? You can kind of guess on the trailers that he's not really a priest, but he's, for the most part of the movie, in fact until like the third act, he's keeping up with the priest persona that he put on here. But basically he's like, hey, you can help out this family, and you know, they just take your camera that you got, your ghost camera, and come take a couple pictures. So he goes over there, and they warn him like, hey, once you step foot in here, your life is going to change. But of course they're not being very specific, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, in the real world, right, like the way people actually talk, they probably would have just said like, hey, if you step foot in here, you're going to be haunted by a ghost. Even after you leave and you go back to your apartment, the ghosts are still going to be there, and they're going to mess with you until you come back to the house. So they don't tell him that, and then that partway seems to be the plan, but also it seems like she's like, oh no, I did warn you that your life would change. It's like, come on, if you were really trying to warn him, you would have been much more specific in what you were talking about. Anyways, so, you know, he pretends to take a bunch of pictures around the house because his camera's battery had died. So basically just like, okay, he does not believe any of this is real. So then I'm wondering, so what's up with the camera then? Like, he made it and it was in the, you know, it was in the newspapers and everything, but then what, it never worked? I don't quite understand. Anyways, so basically, yeah, he goes home, he's getting haunted by a ghost, so he has to go back to the house because the ghost keeps on going like, go back, you know? So basically it's revealed that not only had they contacted him, but they had also contacted Owen Wilson's character earlier. So again, time skips are happening. You know, the idea that Owen Wilson's character had been contacted before him, and like the reason that he involved this guy was because, you know, he knew he was going to be haunted because Owen Wilson was also being haunted by someone else. You know, so there's some tricky editing here, and this goes all the way to the third act, where I do kind of feel like there was easily like another 30 minutes to this movie where they showed Owen Wilson being contacted first, and then he gets haunted, and then they contact this guy, and then maybe they go more into the backstory of this camera, because also you know, the camera doesn't last long. The camera is like introduced as this big deal, and you think it's going to be like this very helpful like plot device that's going to be like involved with solving this problem, but then the camera gets destroyed like by the end of the first act, and it's not rebuilt or anything. So it's like, okay, I guess the camera didn't matter that much, you know, like, but they really built that camera up to be like a big deal. But, and so I guess that's another thing, is that like you can kind of feel some rewrites happening, you know, like it feels like that camera at one point was like a major part of this movie, and then suddenly it's just not, and they're just like, and it broke, it's gone, like okay. But he sticks around because now he's haunted, so that, you know, at least they do have that device to like bring you know, this group of people together, and like they all have to stick around in the house, and they have to solve this mystery. So it is, because just like on the ride, if you once you leave, you're gonna take some hitchhikers with you, you know, like, and you see them in the mirror when you get in the car, you know, so that kind of thing. Anyway, so they bring on a couple other people who, you know, they're also haunted, so they kind of have to be like, oh yeah, come on in, you know, and like basically trick them into being haunted. That way they're now willing to really help them. So they get a psychic, and then they also get this historian and Danny DeVito, who, he has a heart condition for the entire movie. Like, that's like one of his defining things, and I guess you're kind of waiting on that heart condition to become like a problem, because they have, you know, oh, and even like the 999 haunts, right? Like the main bad guy, the Hatbox Ghost. I can't say that word for some reason. The Hatbox Ghost is waiting on his 1000th soul, but it has to be a willing thing, which again feels like another kind of twist on like oh, it can't just be someone who dies, like they can't just kill you, you have to be willing to die, which adds like a whole other element to this that I'm not sure the movie really needed, but okay. And so Danny DeVito has this heart condition the whole movie, and so at first he thought that he was going to be the one who dies, but then because they introduced this thing where it has to be a willing person, it's like, okay, so I guess even if his character died from this heart condition, he wouldn't count as the 1000th ghost, you know. So it does different things like that where I'm kind of confused, because I'm like, it feels like the heart condition was going to be a big plot point where he does eventually die in the house because he got scared, and that would have been like the 1000th ghost. But then they're like, actually no, it has to be a willing person. So it's like, okay, so the heart condition doesn't matter, because you know what I mean, like he's not willingly dying if he has like a heart attack or something. He does have like an attack later, and they use this opportunity for him to get possessed, where he ties up the rest of the crew, and he's possessed by the Hatbox Ghost. And basically it was just that the other characters had managed to go to this other mansion, grab the Hatbox Ghost's hat, because they found out that he was like this really evil real estate guy who was sacrificing people with dark arts, you know. So he's like this just a really evil dude who's now a really evil ghost, even more evil than the other ghosts in the house. Anyway, so they got the hat, and they're gonna use this they're gonna use this banishing ritual to get rid of him, and they just needed an article of his clothing. And they do this another interesting thing near the third act, where all the characters kind of go their separate ways, and they all have a job to do to defeat the ghost. But it does really feel like that was also a rewrite, because you have Owen Wilson running down the halls trying to distract all the different ghosts. You have Danny DeVito, who just has to get the hat out of the fire that it was thrown in, so he's just gotta like save at least a small part of the hat. Tiffany Haddish is running to go free Madame Leota, which doesn't, I don't know, the whole idea that she's now like not confident in her psychic abilities, and she's like, I don't know if I can actually free you, and she has to like try to free Madame Leota from her crystal ball, and it becomes like this. It feels like in the third act they're like, we need every character to have something, you know, we need to have a resolution of some kind of arc for every character, even though it felt like some of them were kind of just made up at the end, right? Like Tiffany Haddish was not like self-conscious about her psychic abilities until like, you know, near the third act, where she's like, actually, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough. It's like, you were doing all kinds of stuff earlier in the movie. You were fine. But now, you know, again, it feels like you can kind of feel the rewrites in this movie a little bit, you know, and they don't really bother me. Like ultimately we end up with like a pretty satisfying thing here. It just, you can kind of feel different like threads that were added or not concluded because they were kind of written over, you know. I guess that's the best way I can describe it. Anyways, they managed to banish the Hatbox Ghost, and they decide to live in the house essentially, because like the ghosts are now good, which again, Owen Wilson managed to talk to some of the ghosts and just convince them to be on their side. So it wasn't like the ghosts were being controlled by the Hatbox Ghost. He was just real scary, and the ghosts were like, oh, I don't mess with that guy, so I guess I'll do what he says. You know, but Owen Wilson, the fake priest, just manages to talk to him. So I guess they could have just done that the whole time. They could have just managed to talk them out of helping the bad guy. Anyways, so yeah, the mom and the son and our main hero, they kind of end up being a family, which the whole movie you're hoping that happens, right? Because like he lost his wife and they lost their their dad, and so you're like, okay, this is happening. They got some chemistry going on. So they decide to stay in the haunted mansion because now they have friendly ghosts who are partying all the time, and they have like that diner scene where the ghosts are like playing the piano and everything. And the rest of the crew just like, they're visiting for dinners and meals, and they all kind of become like this new like found family type thing, right? And I will say, like, that's definitely one of this movie's strengths, is like the characters are all really likable. They all do their part really well. I'm glad that they all have like their own job, like you have your psychic and your historian and your priest who turned out to be a fake priest, and you have like your skeptic, but also he built a camera, which again, the camera, it seemed like it was going to be so important, and then it ended up not being anything. So I don't know. But they all have pretty good chemistry with each other. They all like, if anything, like if the movie could have been a little bit longer, it would have been because like I want to see more of this crew together, and I also want to see like some of these things more developed, of like, if you're gonna give her suddenly like insecurities about how strong in the psychic arts she actually is, like, well, maybe explore that earlier in the movie. That way the payoff feels earned instead of it just kind of being a last minute thing. It's just stuff like that. Like Owen Wilson was revealed to be a fake priest only at the very end of the movie, even though you can kind of tell that he is, only at the end that he's like, hey, I work at a costume department. I just put this costume on and I try to get money. And, like, I'm like, okay, that's funny, but I don't know. It's interesting that like this was not even a thing. Only he says this to only one character at the very end of the movie. It doesn't really affect anything else. Maybe they could have, they kind of have a moment where he has to pretend to be an exorcist. But I don't know. It's interesting that like, it's interesting that they give each of these characters their own struggles, but some of them they just don't feel fully developed. I don't know. But in any case, I do like all the characters. I like how much they were able to incorporate from the actual ride, like just like the whole actual plot of like, yeah, you're haunted when you leave, so you have to come back to the house and try to figure this out. And then he's after his 1000th soul, and it's like, yeah, this is all exactly what the ride is. Like the ride very loosely has a structured plot, right? Like it very, there's kind of a story there. And this fully like encapsulates that inside of a movie. So I really enjoyed this one. I wish that it had come out closer to Halloween. I especially wish it didn't come out this weekend, because like it's definitely gonna become just eaten up by the Barbenheimer effect, and that's so unfortunate, because I feel like if this movie had been given more attention, it would have had at least a moderate amount of success. Also, and this is just me, I love Halloween. I love haunted houses and the whole, like, even the Disney ride, where it's like, it's not like scary, but it is like, it's just kind of like that cheesy haunted house type thing. I'm totally down with all of that, right? So I can easily see myself adding this movie to the rotation of movies. Obviously it's going to get compared to the Eddie Murphy movie a lot, which, that movie had its own strengths, right? Like, I think maybe the villain was a little bit stronger in that movie than this one was, and it's I'm okay with both of these existing, like this one does not attempt to be that at all. They're both obviously inspired by similar things happening and in the ride, but their plots are so different that it's like, yeah, this is not like a remake or any kind of like retreading of things we've seen before. It's like, no, this is actually a very, very different story happening. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I wish it was coming out during a different time, because I have heard some people say that Halloween stuff is starting to end up on the shelves of stores, but it's if they had just waited at least like another month and a half or something, like, man, this probably would have been like talked about more. But I feel like right now I'm not hearing anyone talk about Haunted Mansion. It's Barbenheimer, like, so I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, if you see Haunted Mansion, let me know what you guys think. How does this compare to the 2003 version? How does this compare to just, you know, the ride? If you love the ride, like, do you think they did a good job of incorporating everything from that ride? Because I feel like they definitely did that. Like, if nothing else, they definitely, like, they took even the small details in the, you know, they had graves where they had like funny, like little dark puns on the graves. Like they have a scene where they show that. They kind of had everything in this movie, so I really enjoyed it. Anyways, yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.